Okay, so we can start.
Yes.
Good evening. Welcome to everyone. My name is Caroline. I am from the Focolare movement. So for this month of June, we will be conducting this program. We will be assisting ECC as we are collaborating together, to organize this series of lectures. So we're very happy to have Bishop Paul Shishir Sarker from Bangladesh with us. And then we have many people from all over India. And it's really good to be together. I will introduce to you the moderator for this evening. Her name is Edelweiss Quadros from Mumbai. Edelweiss is a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 1 boy. And Edelweiss has worked as an English and social studies teacher and manager in secondary schools across the state board, ICSC and IGCSE curricula for 25 years. During these years, she also worked with differently abled children and guided them through graduate and even postgraduate studies. She also initiated the environment cell in her school after stimulating an interest in nature and the environment in them. Along with her students, she also set up an NGO, UMED, after the Mumbai floods to cater to the educational and medical needs of children in slum areas. She has been associated with the Focolare movement for 25 years and has been a volunteer of God for 20 years. As a volunteer working in the field of education, she has been associated with the NGO EDU, meaning Education for Unity, and helped carry out their pilot project in India, participating and conducting various Focolare initiatives in the field of education, teacher training, interreligious dialogue, and culture has helped her develop a wide insight and experience on various issues. Presently, she works as an education consultant, academic writer, and teacher trainer. So, Edelweiss.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Caroline, for that introduction. As today, my grandson completes 11 months. That's the occasion of the day. But let me talk a little about my introduction to Rabindranath Thakur. As is known in India, here we refer to Rabindraji as Rabindranath Tagore, different from the name mentioned in the invite. Of his family, of Rabindranath's family, Thakur indicates the position, the status of the family in society. Being an English literature graduate, I was introduced to Rabindraji through his poems, of course. But I was very happy to hear that, Bishop Sarker will be talking to us about Rabindranath Tagore, since he has a degree in Bengali literature. The language in which Rabindranath wrote all his beautiful poetry. We all know Rabindraji was the first Indian to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature, and therefore his literature would have been so beautiful. So through his poems, through his writings, being in the field of education, because Rabindraji also set up Shanti Niketan and Vishwa Bharati, which is his university. Yeah. All these things have so we throughout my lifetime, I think there's a lot of things you hear about Rabindranath Tagore. Also, being a history teacher, his contribution to the freedom struggle, the fact that he gave up his knighthood to end in solidarity with those who laid down their lives at Jallianwala Bagh. All these things we have heard in India. But to think of him as a spiritual, as somebody who was deeply moved by spirituality, is a new aspect that we will be introduced to by Bishop Sarker. Because we think of him as a poet and an educationist. But there's another thing where I was exposed to a new aspect of Rabindranath Tagore was through his Rabindra Sangeet. My brother Raul is a Bharatnatyam dancer, and over the years he has done ballets of Rabindranath Tagore. Although he doesn't know a word of Bengali, he has been the main character of Rabindranath Tagore's ballet dramas or dance dramas, and I happened to go to see him in those, and therefore was exposed to Rabindra Sangeet through these dance ballets, and was therefore saw a new aspect of Rabindraji through these dance ballets. So today I'm very excited because Bishop Ji will now open a new side of Rabindra to all of us. Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Thank you, Your Grace, for accepting this invitation to enlighten us about Rabindranath Thakur, and we hope to have an enlightening evening.
Thank you,
Over to you,
Edelweiss.
Caroline. Yeah.
Thank you. We will say a few words about who Bishop Paul Shishir Sarker is and his connection with Tagore. So, the Most Reverend Paul Shishir Sarker is the former Bishop of Dhaka and moderator of the Church of Bangladesh. He received his early education from Oxford Mission High School, Barisal. He graduated with a BA Honours and MA from Government BM College, Barisal, under the Dhaka University. After earning a Bachelor of Divinity degree from Bishop's College in Kolkata, under the Senate of Serampore, India, he was ordained as presbyter in 1987. In 1998, he was graduated with a Master's of Theology from Louisville Presbyterian Seminary in Kentucky, USA. Then he served as the principal of St. Andrew's Theological College, Dhaka, from 1999 to 2002. In 2003, in February, he was consecrated as Bishop of Kushtia Diocese. And in 2007, in October, he was appointed as the moderator of the Church of Bangladesh. In December of 2009, he was installed as the Bishop of Dhaka Diocese. He has retired in February 2019. Since his student life until now, Bishop Sarker is involved with the ecumenical organizations, especially with SCM, YMCA, WCC, and others. He was a substitute member of the Standing Committee of the Anglican Communion Office and later member of the Echo Bishops and Interfaith Commission of ACO. He's interested in writing articles on different issues, including theological topics, mainly in Bengali. So now I pass on to Edelweiss.
Thank you, Caroline. Now we will hear Bishop Paul Sarker on his he has made a study of certain books to help prepare for this lecture. So I'm hoping that we will all pay attention. And one reminder, please, those who would like to ask questions can put down your questions in the chat as they come to you. It will help us to quicken things up once Bishop Paul has finished his lecture. Okay, if we have the questions beforehand, it will quicken the pace and we will not waste time. So thank you, Bishop. Over to you.
Honorable Chair at the Luis Quadros Bachelor Movement, respected Director of ECC, Father Matthew Chandrakunal, and all other persons who are attending physically or virtually to listen to my lecture. Greetings to you all from Bangladesh. I tried to avoid this invitation to present this paper, but my dear friend, Father Matthew, requested me. So finally I could not avoid, I accepted. However, it is a great and wonderful privilege for me to share my lecture about the great person, Kavi Guru Rabindranath's life, works, and thoughts as a part of the Hindu-Christian Dialogue for Fellowship online series of lectures of ECC Bangalore. It is a long lecture though. I hope you will be able to hold your attention until the end and will be able to understand my English, though it is very simple English, and accent, as I am from Bangladesh. So now I shall go through the main paper. Rabindranath Thakur, man of free mind and soul. Introduction. Is on my computer, so it moves very quickly. Sorry for that. Rabindranath Thakur was a great poet of Bengali literature who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Gitanjali, Songs Offerings, the first Indian and Asian, even non-European, to be so honored. He placed Bengali literature in the highest place in the world. Most of you know that Bengali literature and culture are very rich, but without Rabindranath, we cannot imagine this richness. He became eminent throughout the world for his thoughts and wonderful creation in the 19th century, and he still continues to influence and inspire many people of India and of the world. When you try to understand him and his writings, we are thrown into a deep and boundless ocean. And obviously, it is a difficult task for us to immerse ourselves in that ocean to find the pearls from the bottom of it. What we can do is only to surf over the waves of it. Oh, sorry. Maybe I should go through the paper in front of me. When we try to understand him and his writings, we are thrown into a deep and boundless ocean, and obviously it is a difficult task for us to immerse ourselves in that ocean to find the pearls from bottom of it. What we can do is only to surf over the waves of it. As a student of Bengali literature, very naturally I became fond of him. I am overwhelmed by his unique style of expression, plucking the words, and the deep and different dimensions of his imagination. Yet, it does not help me to understand him completely at all. And I did not even try to go into the depths of it. My respect and love for Rabindranath are very simple and emotional, especially for his songs, and mainly for the devotional songs. I am not a scholar and have not done any studies at church about Rabindranath and his writings. However, as we are trying today to understand his concept of religion, God, and spirituality, we should always keep in mind that Rabindranath was a poet and a man of free mind and soul. We cannot understand him and his thoughts by our own mindset that has been formed by our present social, political, and religious knowledge and background, and by the concepts and systems of the present time. Rabindranath was not a member of the Hindu community, not a priest of any religious sect, not a social or political leader of Bengal or India. He was not a theologian of his own faith, that is Brahma Samaj, and his concept of religion was not structured by any doctrine and dogmas like many of us. He did not even preach any such religion through his writings, but his own thoughts and philosophy of religion. Sorry for that. There is Azan time, but I shall continue. We know that in the 19th century, there were great social and religious reform movements in India. And this happened mainly because of the Western occupation of India and the influence of Western thoughts and philosophies. There were new Indian intellectuals influenced by Western thought, particularly the empiricist, utilitarian, and agnostic philosophies in England. There was very little Christian influence in it except Christ's life and teachings. These Western-oriented ideas and thoughts, which were called the Renaissance, generated and influenced a secular and rational point of view that stimulated social and religious movements in India. Most of us may know that out of these movements emerged the Brahma Samaj and Ramakrishna Mission and some other socio-religious movements in Bengal and then in India as well. They also caused interest in the traditional mysticism in Bengal to grow. Brahma Samaj advocates the existence of an infinite singularity. It does not believe in avatars, reincarnation, or rebirths. It also denounces idol worship and polytheism. The infinite singularity is considered limitless, indivisible, unperceivable, and undefinable. Ramakrishna taught, among other things, an essential diversity of religious paths that lead all to the same goal. Swami Vivekananda, the great disciples of Ramakrishna, gave an intellectual form to this teaching. As a whole, it was a time of an unstable social, political, and religious situation in Bengal, which then spread further in India. Educated people renewed their traditional social and religious thoughts, and the Thakur family not only initiated it, but was a pioneer of this movement. Rabindranath wrote in his collected lectures and addresses, 1988, quoted, "My life was born and brought up in an atmosphere of the confluence of three movements, all of which were revolutionary," unquoted. But there is explanation. The religious reform movement started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the founder of the Brahma Samaj. The literary revolution pioneered by the Bengali novelist Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who lifted the dead weight of, that is in Rabindranath's language, lifted the dead weight of ponderous forms from our language, and with the touch of his magic aroused our literature from her age-long sleep, unquoted. And the Indian national movement, protesting the political and cultural dominance of the West, members of the Thakur family had actively participated in all the three movements, and Rabindranath's own work, in a broad sense, represented the culmination of this three-pronged revolution. Now let us look briefly at Rabindranath's life and works to better understand his writings and his thoughts. Prince Dwarkanath Thakur, grandfather of Rabindranath, was a close friend of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. They worked together on several projects, and Dwarkanath helped Ram Mohan Roy to found the Brahmo Samaj, Brahmo Sabha first, the society that would later become Brahmo Samaj. After Ram Mohan left for England, Dwarkanath was the Pradhan Acharya or principal of the Brahmo Sabha. Rabindranath Thakur was the elder son of Dwarkanath. He succeeded his father and contributed a lot to Brahmo Samaj and in the reform movements followed by his father. Rabindranath Thakur was born on 7th May 1861 at the Jorashaku Thakur Bari in Kolkata. He was the youngest of his parents' 14 children. His father was Rabindranath Thakur and his mother was Sharoda Devi. His father tried his best to educate Rabindranath, but eventually failed because Rabindranath did not like any traditional education system because of its formal lessons and the limited scope of learning. He was so influenced by the nature around him in his childhood that he started writing a poem when he was only 8 years old. His first large poetry collection was published when he was only 16 years old. Before that, he had also started writing short stories and dramas. He had no formal higher education in religion or secular studies, but as a member of a rich and educated intellectual family background, he did a lot of study of religions, literature, including the politics, social, and political science of the time that he was grown up. I think Prakriti means nature. In Bengali, we call Prakriti. In Hindi, maybe the same. Of Bengal and India was one of his main books. That is my personal opinion. He was sent to London to study law to become a barrister, but he did not do well. His father brought him back home and tried to prepare him for the task of looking after the family estates, especially in the East Bengal, now Bangladesh. His father arranged his marriage with Mrinalini Devi from East Bengal too, and it took place in December 1883. They have 5 children, but 2 died their early childhood, and another 2 and his wife died when he was in Shantiniketan. Only the last one, Rabindranath Thakur, died in 1961 after the death of Rabindranath. Few years after the death of Rabindranath. Rabindranath's tour of many parts of British India, Himalaya, and Shantiniketan with his father in boyhood, and later his traveling to East Bengal by boat on mighty Padma River and living in the Shilaida and Sajjadpur in former East Bengal to look after the states influenced him a lot in his writings. He wrote a good number of good poems and short stories during this time, in which he enormously depicted the ordinary rural life of the people, their struggles, joy and sorrows, and the beauty of nature. He also was very much influenced by the Bengali Bauls, the mystics, like the great Lalon Fakir and others in East Bengal. After failing to manage the states in East Bengal, his father sold out the states step by step, and Rabindranath went to Shantiniketan to build an ashram, the monastery. He also built there a prayer hall, a school with outdoor classes, and a library. He planted many trees and made gardens. As he was critical of the traditional education system, he founded a new type of university, Vishwa Bharati University at Shantiniketan, which was opened on 22nd December 1921. The university gave personal guidance to all students. Students lived close to the nature, and the teacher-student relationship followed a pattern of the Gurukul system of ancient India. In his own words, Rabindranath wanted this university to become, I quoted, a world center for the study of humanity, somewhere beyond the limits of nation and geography, unquoted. He visited many countries and met notable persons of the world of this time. Between 1878 and 1932, he visited 30 countries on 5 continents. The main purpose was to introduce his writings to the non-Bengalis, to share his thoughts on the religious, social, and political systems of that time, and also collected funds for his works in Shantiniketan, especially for the university. He also gave his Nobel Prize money to the university. In his last years, Rabindranath took an interest in science and wrote a collection of essays. These essays explored biology, physics, and astronomy too. He set up a rural reconstruction project in a village called Shurur, near Shantiniketan. He was also a distinguished author, educator, musician, artist, social reformer, and philosopher. He took an interest in drawing and painting when he was about 69 years old. He started drawing and painting. Rabindranath's last 5 years were marked by chronic pain and 2 long periods of illness with unconsciousness. He was suffering from a prostate gland complication. An operation took place by the best doctors of Kolkata, Bidhan Chandra Roy and Neil Ratan Sarker, but unfortunately, the operation failed to save him, and following the day after the operation, he died on 7th August 1941 at age 80. He wrote more than 2,000 poems and around 2,230 songs, in addition to which he wrote a number of short stories, dramas, and novels. Most of the songs were compiled in a Gid Bitan under the different titles. These songs are now a part of modern Bengali culture. Many of his poems and songs are also parts of his novels and stories. He is the only person in the world to have 3 of his songs selected as the anthems of 3 nations. The first one is India's Jana Gana Mana. That is actually a Brahma Sangit composed by him. The second one is Sri Lanka's national anthem, Namo Namo Mata, translated by his student, Ananda Sama Rakun in Sinhala. And the third one is the anthem of Bangladesh. That you know, Amar Sonar Bangla, Ami Tomai Bhalobasi. His well-known lectures about religion and philosophy were compiled under the name of Religion of Man. We shall discuss in the next section. He is also very well known for composing music, though most of the notation of his songs is given by other people, but he given the tune, but not the notation. His writings greatly influenced Bengali culture during the late 19th century and the early 20th century. His poems and songs still dominate Bengali culture, and his thoughts and philosophy still influence many people, not only of Bengal, but of India and beyond. He was considered the most important poet of modern day India. Bengali people admire him, calling him Vishwa Kavi, that is poet of the world, and Kavi Guru, that is master poet. The British Raj gave him a knighthood in 1915, but he refused to accept it as a protest against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of the weaponless people at Amritsar, Punjab, by the British troops. He was a social reformer and activist, especially in favor of the removal of casteism, developing the life of the farmers and freedom of thoughts, and for the freedom of the motherland, India. India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, wrote in Discovery of India, quoted, Tagore and Gandhi have undoubtedly been the 2 outstanding and dominating figures in the first half of the 20th century. Tagore's influence over the mind of India, and especially of successive rising generations, has been tremendous. Now I shall discuss the understanding of Tagore or Rabindranath of religion. Rabindranath's understanding of religion, God, and human beings we can find mainly in his lectures and writings. We have informed that Maharshi Rabindranath Thakur, the father of Rabindranath, played an important role in Brahmo Samaj, followed by his father, Prince Dwarkanath Thakur. And it became the most influential religious reform movement in India and also made a significant contribution to making modern India. According to Brahmo Samaj, there is only one God who is the creator and the savior of this world, and no created object, including any image or idol, is to be worshipped as God. And God alone is to be considered as infallible. The human soul is immortal and capable of infinite progress and is responsible to God for its doings. Rabindranath grew up with the background of this Brahmo Samaj that was founded based on the synthesis of all religion of the world. Scholars say that he was influenced by the liberalism of Brahmo Samaj, the Upanishads, as well as by the mysticism of Bengal and the Renaissance of the 19th century. Bengal mysticism was spread by various groups of Bauls or Bairagis. I don't know. Do you know Bairagis? They also move around, without a specific shelter or home, and beg people for food and always sing a song, a religious song, kind of mystic songs. Like the fakirs, fakirs called by the Muslims, fakirs, and Hindu called the Bairagis. Baul, yes. Bengal mysticism was spread by various groups of Bauls or Bairagis. They were people of a spirit of renunciation who were liberal thinkers and simply believed in the love of mankind and the Creator. For the mystics, the realization of God is achieved not through worship, but through love and service. Next to it, Rabindranath, to a greater or lesser degree, was influenced by Vaishnavism, Sufism, the hymns of Mirabai, Tulsidas. I think the folklore people will understand who are they. The lyrics of Chandidas, the mystical songs of Kabir. Among all these, human being and nature were important to him too. And all these formed his convictions about religion and philosophy. For Rabindranath, the teachings of Upanishads were about the concept of God as positive, personal, and realizable through love. The Vaishnava ideal of love to him was the basis of a relationship between man and God. There is a compilation of lectures given by Rabindranath called Religion of Man. It was edited and drawn from his Hebert lectures that delivered at Oxford University in 1931. He also made another compilation of his 3 lectures on the same subject and delivered them at the University of Kolkata in 1933. Later, it was published in Bengali called Manusher Dharma, the religion of man. I have done some studies about it for this presentation and will focus on some main points about it. The main theme of the religion of man is the divinity of humanity and the humanity of God. Rabindranath pursues this theme through endless variations. According to him, religion develops human consciousness and enables it to realize the eternal spirit through science, philosophy, literature, and the arts. True religion is the realization of one's own nature. He never believed in any religious institution and religious practices, whether it was Hinduism, or Islam or Christianity. He believed that it was organized religions that always act as barrier to communal harmony. Rabindranath explained that the essence of religion is humanity, because human aspects form the basis of religion. He believed that humanity and divinity do not belong to two different orders, but they are the two sides of the same coin. Humanity and divinity. According to him, divinity is a latent in humanity, and purpose of religion is to awaken the element of divinity. Religion always should be a uniting force between humanity and divinity, and between human and human, but not a dividing force. Thus, religion is the inner development of the individual that makes a human lift himself above all the narrowness of his society, sects, color, and even country. Religion helps to realize one's own nature of divinity. Rabindranath thinks it is a method of joyful acceptance of life in touch with the glory of nature in all activities. He said that religion is not renunciation, no escapism, nor is a complete absorption with God or even dogmatism. There is humanity, manushyattva, and inhumanity, pashuttva, and religion helps humanity to flourish over inhumanity. Rabindranath's religion of man differs from the organized religions in the way it defined God, in its view on the origin of man and the cosmos, on revelation and on authority and its commandments. Rabindranath defined God as the universal spirit, the spirit of life, the eternal spirit of human unity and beyond our direct knowledge. He said, I quoted, "This God does not dwell in the heaven, but in the heart of every human being." He also said that the truth is revealed to every person and every day, not only to a chosen one or a few. This depends on whether we listen to him, that means God, and realize it or not. This revelation comes from an inner source of divine wisdom. He believes that God and truth are inseparable. God and truth are inseparable aspects of the same reality. According to him, God is personal as well as impersonal. Any human being, when he is prepared to accept all the good things and ignore the bad things, actually can realize the divinity present in him. And by realizing the presence of divinity, a human being can achieve power in his inner self. This power is neither physical nor mental, but it belongs to the inward self, where man is united with his God. He said, I quoted again, "Humanization of God does not merely mean that God is God of humanity, but also it means that it is the God in every human being." Unquoted. In his philosophy, many names have been used instead of God. These are universal man, the supreme man, the supreme spirit, the infinite personality, etc. Rabindranath takes absolute as the impersonal aspects of God. Being the impersonal God is featureless and attributeless. Rabindranath felt God, the infinite, in the depth of his inner self. Sometimes he realized that the infinite God is playing with him. According to him, God's dwelling or presence in human beings can be understood through love, joy, and service. He depicted his realization of God by his poetical language in various songs. One of them is প্রভু আমার, প্রিয় আমার, পরম ধন হে, চিরপথের সঙ্গী আমার, চিরজীবন হে. I will say only the little English of that, the beginning of few lines. The English translation by Chinmoy Ghosh is as follows. O thou my Lord, O thou my dear one, most precious treasure thou, companion on life's rugged path all through my days. But I understand that when you hear the translation, you cannot get the real, impression of the Bengali literature or language. Then I skip the whole poem song. For Rabindranath, Zoroaster is the first prophet of the religion of man. And we know Zoroaster, Zoroaster, Zoroastrian. As he spiritualized the meaning of sacrifice and addressed his words to all humanity, regardless of the distance of space and time. Zoroaster emphasizes the evolutionary process that has as its intimate goal not the attainment of heaven, nor a nirvana or saturi. I don't know the main meaning of saturi, seeing into one's true nature, that is called saturi. But the release of each individual's consciousness from the illusory bond of the separate self and the realization of the spiritual unity of all human beings. Rabindranath argues that the ascetics should leave the ritualistic flowers and incense inside the temple, which do not serve any purpose, as there is no God in the temple. According to the poet Rabindranath, one can find God not in the temple, but with the workers who are working the whole day in the dirt and under the hot sun. In the religion of man, he says, I quoted, as an animal, he is still dependent upon nature. As an animal, he is still dependent upon nature. And as a man, he is sovereign who builds his world and rules in it, unquoted. Rabindranath saw the hatred and violence between the religious communities and sects, so he refused to accept differences in religious faiths, but the unity of all people in divinity. He thinks when any religion claims its superiority over another religion, it brings hatred and conflicts. It seems Rabindranath is very clear in his faith. He says, again I quoted, man must always be a music maker and dreamer of dreams. He never loses in his material quests his longing for the touch of the divine, unquoted. Rabindranath believed love play, that is in bracket drama, between man and God was being enacted in the sensible world of color, sound, and touch. He wrote, again quoted, whatever I can offer to God, I offer to man. And to God I give whatever can I give to man. I make God man and man God, unquoted. Such philosophical wisdom was reflected in many of his lyrics and dramas. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, in his book entitled The Philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore, said that Rabindranath is essentially a poet, not a philosopher, though it is possible for us to gather his philosophical views from his poetry, unquoted. Here is another devotional song where he expresses his understanding of God, who often dwells in the human. It is in Bengali, Shimar Maje Oshim Tumi Bajao Apun Shur. And Shailesh Parekh translated it as follows. I say only first two lines in English. Oh, boundless within bounds, you play your own tunes, hence your light within me is so mellow. You can read the rest later on. There is, then I should go to the devotional songs Gitanjali. In this chapter, I shall discuss briefly the spirituality of Rabindranath's poem songs based on Gitanjali. We know that Rabindranath's reputation in the world was established only after the publication of the English version of Gitanjali, for which he got the Nobel Prize in 1913. There are total 157 poems in original Bengali version of Gitanjali. The English version is a selection of 103 devotional songs, poetry out of it, and Rabindranath himself translated it first. Though it was not a very good translation, he himself said. Gitanjali led people to think that he was essentially a writer of spirituality and mysticism, but Rabindranath always pointed out that he was not an ascetic. In a letter to his niece in 1913 about the English version of Gitanjali, Rabindranath confesses that he was not, quoted, able to imagine to this day how people came to like it so much, and that he cannot write English is such a patent fact. He explains that his motive behind the translations was that he simply, that is also I quoted, simply felt an urge to recapture through the medium of another language the feelings and sentiments which create such a feast of joy within. Unquote. Given these shortcomings that come with the difficulty of translating Bengali to English and the poet's own insecurities over the grasp of a different language, Gitanjali still remains a universal expression of spirituality. Let me drink a little water. Most of the songs of Gitanjali were written after successively the death of his wife, 2 children, and his father Rabindranath Thakur. That is between 1901 to 1905. A spiritual force strengthened him and helped him to overcome his pain and agony. Maybe Gitanjali was an inner search for peace and reaffirmation of his faith in his Jivan Devata. He, most of the times in poems and songs, he said Jivan Devata, that is God of life. When Harold Jarney was presenting him the Nobel Prize, he told him that, I quoted, the Gitanjali is mysticism, but not mysticism that relinquishing personality seeks to become absorbed in all to a point of nothingness, but one that, with all the faculties of soul at the highest pitch, eagerly set forth to meet the living Father of all creation, unquote. That is said by the, I think, the president of Harold, president named by Harold Jarney from Norway. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan again said in the Philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore article, I quoted, the poems of Gitanjali are the offerings of the infinite to the finite to the infinite, unquoted. In his introduction to Gitanjali, Yeats, the English poet, Yeats called it, I quoted, the work of supreme culture, and confessed, I have carried the manuscript of these translations about me for days, reading it in railway trains or on top of omnibuses and in restaurants, and I have often had to close it, lest some stranger would see how it moved me. We appreciate the scholars who tried to understand Rabindranath's spirituality from his poems, especially from Gitanjali, and some of them did it very well. But to understand and enjoy them fully, it is essential to listen to these melodious songs. There are some songs available in different languages, but here lies another problem, that you cannot feel the depth and spirituality fully in any other language than Bengali, as he expressed himself in them. In Bangladesh, selected devotional songs Rabindranath are using even in the worship of the Catholic and Anglican churches, as these are very spiritual. One of his lovely songs is in Bengali, Amar hiyar majhe lukiye chile, dekhte ami paini, tomai dekhte ami paini. I also will translate, it is whole song is translated, but I'll read only the first portion. It is translated by Shumana Roy like this. You hid in my heart invisible to me. I could not find thee. My eyes opened up to the world. I did not look inside me. That means God is here, but I look around. But there is no God. God is inside me. It is true that every human being is capable of experiencing illumination like Rabindranath, but he had the potential for more. He had the power of realization, maybe God gifted, through disciplined striving, through his participation in nature, arts, symbols, ceremonials, and the knowledge of great souls. That is why Rabindranath said, I again quoted, the truth is inside me, like the song which has only to be mastered and sung. It, unquoted, it encompasses the depth and width of humanity and our struggle to find meaning. He does so by exploring human relationship, romantic notions of nature, childhood and the everyday man, and separation from and longing for God. While exploring these, he acknowledges human flaws, hoping for collective progress and perfection while upholding universal virtues. He emphasizes the importance of one's work and art as a medium of devotion, as opposed to materialistic expressions as ordained by religious doctrines. Rabindranath also explores the human relationship with his God. In Gitanjali, he uses a wide variety of terms for God, from masters and king to friend and brother. The life force he often ponders upon is expressed through both feminine and masculine personalities. Ultimately, this fluidity of reference stands testament to his multi-dimensional relationship to God, one that is as devotional as creation is to one's creator, as nurturing as a mother to her child, as equal as it is in friendship, and as intimate as the space between two lovers. In a poem in Gitanjali, the verses give off a tone of intimacy. It begins with, I ask for a moment's indulgence to sit by thy side. The words that I have in hand, I will finish afterwards. The verses end as Rabindranath envisions himself sitting, quoted, face to face with thee, that is his God. How he addresses his God here is how one might address a friend or a lover. How he addresses his God, anyone who is seen and felt like an equal, looking eye to eye in closeness. Here, God is in the quite leisurely moments one shares with someone close to them. This kind of devotion is less of a duty and more of a supportive and necessary interaction amidst the work of daily life. There are many examples of more endearing and affectionate terms that what thou conveys, in English in the songs or poems of Gitanjali. This affection coupled with passions he speaks of as evidence of the intimate dimension of his relationship with God. It is said that this inspiring collection in Gitanjali represents his simple prayers of common life. Each of 77 prayers in Gitanjali is an eloquent affirmation of the divine in the face of both joy and sorrow. These prayers transcend time and speak directly to the human heart, like the Psalms of David of the Old Testament. Someone compare, no? Regarding worship, Rabindranath says, I again quoted, our daily worship of God is not really the process of gradual accusation of him, but the daily process of surrendering ourselves, removing all obstacles to union and extending our consciousness of him in devotion and service, in goodness and in love. A free verse translation by Rabindranath of a verse of Gitanjali reads as follows, I quoted, my songs has put off her adornments. She has no pride in dress and decoration. Ornaments would mar our union. They would come between thee and me. Their jingling would drown thy whispers, unquoted. Again quoted, my poet's vanity dies in shame before the sight, O master poet. I have sat down at the feet, only let me make my life simple and straight, like a flute of reed for thee to fill with music. Very nice, no? My poet's vanity dies in shame before thy sight, O master poet. I have sat down at the feet. Only let me make my life simple and straight, like a flute of reed. Reed for the for thee and for you to fill with music. Understanding Christianity. This portion is a little different one, but I don't think that it will be already in English. However, as Rabindranath rejected all kinds of organized and institutionalized religion, therefore he rejected Christianity too, as it is a very organized with the structure, doctrine, and dogmas of the churches, and its variety of forms and also the Western influence in it. However, he likes Jesus Christ very much, who propagates love for God and love for humankind. One of his good friends was Reverend Charles Fear Andrew, an Anglican English priest, who also was a good friend of Gandhiji. He was a Christian missionary, educator, and social reformer in India. He became a close friend of Rabindranath and Mahatma Gandhi and identified with the Indian liberation movement. He developed a dialogue between Christians and Hindus in India in that time. He visited Shantiniketan many times and spent a good time in conversation with the poet and philosopher Rabindranath, but I don't think he ever tried to influence Rabindranath by his faith. However, there is no doubt that Rabindranath studied the Bible, especially the New Testament, and learned about Jesus Christ out of his own interest. The Western version of institutionalized Christianity and the British occupation of India gave him a very negative impression of Christianity of that time. When I was at Bishop's College, Kolkata, for my theological studies, I bought a few books of Rabindranath Thakur from Vishwabharati, as it was very near to our college. In front of is only a few steps to walk. The title of one of the books is Christ. And this small book is a collection of a few short lectures, messages, and poems of Rabindranath Thakur about Christ and Christianity. As a book, it was published on 25th December 1959. There are 7 messages, lectures, and 3 poems in it. He delivered the first 6 messages at the celebration of Christmas at Santiniketan, and the 7th one put together his short messages about Christ, and that he delivered at different times. All these writings expressed his admiration and love for Christ and criticism of Christianity. Let me share with you a few points of these writings from this book. The first longest message of this book is Jishu Chorit in Bengali, in English, Story of Jesus. In this message, Rabindranath described the significance of Jesus coming in an unfavorable particular situation with the political power of Rome and the orthodox and confined religion of the Jews. He said that Jesus overcomes all the temptations of wealth and power. He put reference of the temptation story of his time and humbles himself in order to show the truth and love. And eventually he died on a cross with the thieves. He did not even protest against the injustice that he went through. So according to Rabindranath, in Christ's teaching, quoting from Matthew 5:1, verses 1-2, on humility and through his life and works, Jesus revealed the God in humanity. Jesus called himself Son of Man, and he revealed what it means. Through his suffering and sacrificial death, he made God's revelation in humanity or in a human being. And it has been spreading out through the whole world today. So according to Rabindranath, it gives humanity a high place and manifested real freedom. In his message, Christo Dharma, Christianity, Rabindranath said that the pride of Christianity proves that it is no more a pure religion, because the pride of religion always makes the pride of other religion to rise. He said that because of this, we have a practice in our ashram, that means Shantiniketan, that shows how humanity can save Christ from communal Christians, Vishnu from communal Vaishnavism, and Brahma from the Brahmins. Rabindranath explained, I quoted, in our ashram, we shall accept the essence of Christo Dharma, not as a thing of Christians, but as a thing of human. Interesting. In our ashram, we shall accept the essence of Christo Dharma, that means Christianity, not as a thing of Christians, but as a thing of human. Through the life of Christ, we see the pain, he said, through the life of Christ, we see the pain as a result of the conflict between the Bada and Chota. You understand, Bada and Chota, big and small, or maybe immensity and littleness. Inside the human being, he explained that Jesus said that all sin of the world hit him but could not finish him. Therefore, there is betrayal in this world, but faith does not die in our society. There is violence in our society, but it cannot kill the forgiveness. He admired Christ, saying that the love of Jesus that is expressed in his life exalted him in so high. In other messages, Rabindranath mentioned the disciples of Jesus. According to him, the disciples were such ordinary people without any social status and mostly were fishermen. They understood Jesus and were inspired by his teachings, and their hearts were filled with the sweetness of it, though they did not gain anything out of it. But those who were proud refused this precious message of Christ. He expressed his admiration of Christ, who achieved eternity by his death, and he urged that the great light of his unbroken relationship between life and death was something that we should not miss. That is a very nice word. He expressed his admiration of Christ, who achieved eternity by his death, and he urged that the great light of this unbroken relationship between life and death was something that we should not miss. He also criticized the Christians as they don't follow Christ's teaching and work, but are involved in hatred and war like others. He said that our celebration and acts of worship that we perform are our formal duty, and with this we lure ourselves. Those who come to free us from all kinds of externality, we confine them again with the external functions. This is also interesting. Those who come, that means all the great people, or people like Jesus, those who come to free us from all kinds of externality, we confine them again with the external functions. According to Rabindranath, Christ's birthday cannot be observed according to the date of the calendar only, that is 25th December. But it should be celebrated through our sacrificial service for the truth and for true love. Christ is born in our life as a son of the Father through all this sacrificial love and service. It is said that this kind of real celebration of Christ's birthday comes in our life very rarely, but his death on the cross comes again and again. He said, Rabindranath said, Christ lit many small and big lamps for serving the poor and vulnerable, but the devil is still stronger in this world. Yet there are people who are trying to light the lamps in the darkness, otherwise the world would have been cast and all beauty would go astray and humanity would totally end. He also thinks that in Christ God came in union with humanity in sorrow, and he overcomes the sorrow through freedom and joy. In one place in a short message about Christ, Rabindranath said that with God we need to connect through a mantra. And one of this mantra, it is, I think he taken from the Upanishad. Mantras is Om Pit Nahoshi. Oh, my father, you are my father. Means you are my father. Jesus played this mantra on this earth, and his suffering and pain did not disturb his tune of Pit Nahoshi. You are my father, it is not disturbed by any pain. He also said that Bhagavan Jesus taught us to love our neighbor as ourselves instead of simply love our neighbor. He emphasizes love ourselves as ourselves instead of simply love our neighbor. Jesus even asked his disciples to love their enemy. It may be too much for the ordinary people of our society, but those who declare the great one, the Brahma, above everything, has expressed love until the end. He also agreed, Rabindranath also agreed that true Christians have been expressing love for humanity. And it is very clear that at this one place, Christianity united self-sacrifice with humanity. The 3 poems of this book are called Manaputra, Son of Man, Borodin, Christmas, and Pujalaya, Antore and Bahire, that is inside and outside of the worship place. Most of these poems critically expressed his disappointment about Christianity and their fake and artificial worship, and gave the inspiration to follow Christ in a true sense. The last one, Puja Lawyer Antore and Bahire, was written by originally Reverend Charles Fierendru in English. And Rabindranath translated it into Bengali and published it in his book. In it, there is a description of the worship inside of a church with its beautiful liturgy, where there are biblical words of love and invitation to the service of the vulnerable. But outside of the church, there is a different picture. There is no love and no justice, where the poor and vulnerable are suffering. It ends with a quotation from Matthew 25:40. Now, Rabindranath took this quotation. Whatever you did, or maybe got from Charles Andrews, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. And you know the Christians familiar to this. However, there are many other thoughts and feelings of Rabindranath in this book. I personally found this book very positive, where Rabindranath's view on Christ and his beautiful literary description help and inspire us to renew our Christian faith in the right spirit of Jesus Christ. One of his songs from Gitanjali, he wrote for Christ. He also mentioned in the message of Krista Utsav in this book. Rabindranath wrote, তাই তোমার আনন্দ আমার পর, তুমি তাই এসেছো নিচে, আমায় নইলে ত্রিভুবনেশ্বর, তোমার প্রেম হতো যে মিছে. Rabindranath himself translated it in English as follows. I also take the first two lines. Thus, it is that thy joy in me is so full. Full means full, F-U-L-L, full. Thus it is thou hast come down to me. O thou Lord of all heavens, where would thy love if I were not? The rest you can read later on.
Your Grace, with
This
the
is the last one. Huh?
okay. 2 or 3, 5 minutes if you can wind up, then we can have a discussion.
The conclusion is already here.
Okay, thank you, Your
Shall
Grace.
I-
Yes.
Yes. Rabindranath gradually grew up with his poem mind and free thoughts from his childhood at his own home in Kolkata to his old age at Shantiniketan Ashram. Besides his vast knowledge and experiences of religion, he was very much influenced by ordinary people's life, nature, and humanity, and tried to understand religion in the light of truth and love. As an open-minded thinker, he always kept the doors open to receive the winds of every good thing and values from every direction, and tried to build his own thoughts and concepts, which may not be very static, but changeable. We can call him a mystic too, as he did not provide us with any constructive ideas of God, human, and creation. His poetry is in different variants and covers many styles. As a creative artist, he repeatedly revised the style of writing of his poems. He even wrote many experimental forms and used modernism and realism in his works. He gave Bengali literature a higher place in the world. In his writings, he used new terms and created new words of languages with the flow of the fountain. Translation of his works perhaps inspired and fascinated many scholars and intellectuals of the world, but I don't think they got the real taste or realized the beauty and flavor of his writings, especially of his poetry and songs. Because it is very common and natural that all kinds of translations have a limitation, and it does not provide original taste of the readers. Taste to the readers. Many of his poems have a lyrical quality. These poems tell about the man within the heart and the living God within. One of his great poem, you people know very much, Father Matthew asked me to put it in here, Let My Country Awake. It translated as follows. I shall read the whole poem. Is it okay, Father Matthew, of the chair?
Yeah.
If you don't mind. Where
Yes.
the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words comes out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert and of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. In this great poem, Rabindranath prays to the Almighty, calling my father to raise his country, the people of his country, to awake by understanding their captivity and suffering, especially under the foreign reign of his time. The freedom would be realized at its best, a heaven of freedom. Sholil Shetty, you may know, Sholil Shetty, the born human activist and Secretary General of Amnesty International, described this poem as a powerful, I quoted, a powerful call to action and declaration of belief in achievable change. According to him, Shetty, the title Let My Country Awake could be replaced with Let the World Awake. Thus, the poet's prayer and the call is meaningful even today for our present world, where the human being is suffering under different kinds of captivity. It is true that ordinary Bengali people don't understand his literature and the deep imagination that he depicted in his writings, but they admire him as a great man of a free mind and the soul of Bengal, and celebrate his birth and death anniversary with joy and inspiration every year. I also took an initiative with a program to celebrate Rabindranath's 150th birth anniversary at national level in our church. It was based on the theme, Jukto Karohe Shabar Sange, Mukto Karohe Bandho, meaning unite me with all and set free from the bondage. I picked two lines from a song. It was taken from one of the wonderful devotional songs of Rabindranath Gitanjali, which starts Antaro Mamo Bikoshito Karo Antaro Tarohe. In bracket, they translated this line only, evolve my heart, O my innermost one. Some people did not like this kind of celebration, what I did for a church. Another Nobel Prize winner, Bengali economist Amartya Sen, Amartya Sen said that even for modern Bengalis, Rabindranath was a towering figure, being a deeply relevant and many-sided contemporary thinker. The first president of India, again, Radhakrishnan said, Rabindranath Thakur was one of the representatives of the universal person to whom the future of the world belongs. Oh, it is still one more page, sorry, but I'll finish it. In 1939, Rabindranath collected all his Bangla language's writings called Rabindra Rachanavali, and it is one of Bengal's greatest cultural treasures. And he himself has been proclaimed, I quoted, the greatest poet India has produced, unquoted. He was also famous in much of Europe, North America, and East Asia. Translation of his works are available in many languages, including Russian, English, Dutch, German, and Spanish. In the United States, Thakur gave many lectures during 1960 and 1970. Many people attended those lectures. Rabindranath acknowledged three main sources of his literary inspiration: the Vaishnava poets of medieval Bengal and Bengali folk literature, the classical Indian aesthetic, cultural, and philosophical heritage, and the modern European literary tradition, particularly the work of the English Romantic poets. On his 70th birthday, in an address delivered at the University of Vishwabharati in 1918, Rabindranath said, I have, it is true, quoted, I have, it is true, engaged myself in a series of activities, but the innermost me is not to be found in any of these. At the end of the journey, I am able to see a little more clearly the orb of my life. Looking back, the only thing of which I feel certain is that I am a poet. I'm a Kobi. In one of his nice poems, in Sonarturi, Golden Boat, he says, All I had achieved was carried off on golden boat. Only I was left behind. As we have celebrated the 160th birthday anniversary of Rabindranath Thakur last month, 7th May, I would like to end my lecture by paying a tribute to Kavi Guru Rabindranath, a man of a free mind and soul, with the last stanza from a song of his Gitanjali that I often use in my presentation and message in the interfaith dialogue meetings. It starts in Bengali. কত অজানারে জানাইলে তুমি কত ঘরে দিলে ঠাই দূরকে করিলে নিকট বন্ধু পরকে করিলে ভাই. I will not translate it in English. And the last says, the last lines, 2 lines, তোমারে জানিলে নাহি কেহ পর, নাহি কোনো মানা, নাহি কোনো ডর, সবারে মিলায়ে তুমি জাগিতেছ, দেখা যেন সদা পায়. I should translate it. As I don't find a suitable translation, I translated it as follows. When one knows you, then when one knows you, that means you God, then stranger is no one. Nothing is forbidden, no fear at all. Uniting all, you awakening. Let's see you always. I read again. When one knows you, then stranger is no one. Nothing is forbidden, no fear at all. Uniting all, you awakening. You awaking, sorry, not awakening. You awaking, let's see you always. Here ends my presentation or lecture, whatever you say. And thank you very much for listening this boring lecture. And now it's time for the chair to continue the session. Father.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop Sarker. Thank you for enlightening us on the various aspects of Rabindranath's personality. You have really enlightened us on things that, on the aspects of his life that we were not aware of. Yes, it is true that Rabindraji, as you said, was open-minded. He was a mystic and a creative artist all in one. You know? In his, other than his achievements, he has had numerous achievements as a poet, as an educationist, as an artist. His music, we have been exposed to all of that. But to talk about his idea of religion, his spirituality, was something really new. Although all his poets, as you said, reveal his spiritual side, no? Because there's always that, as you say, no, the longing of man for the divine that is reflected in his poetry. It underlines all of his writings. And today I have understood the inspiration behind this divine, what his idea of the divine was, which I was not really aware of. I mean, very few of us were aware of, no? Because we only read his poems, his stories, his work, and all of that is underlined by this search for the truth and search for the divine. All of his poetry also, he always addresses to God, you know, to the infinite, and yeah, to the different names, you know, that he gives God, the supreme man, the infinite personality. So all of this we have always heard through his poems, but who he referred to was now made very clear to us in all this. Another, this preparation, this lecture of yours also revealed to us your intense love for the works of Rabindranath Thakur and your own admiration for him, which is something that is very, very widely reflected in the Indian ethos, and it's wonderful to know that that Rabindranath Tagore transcended boundaries, and even though, like we think of him as Indian, today I felt he was as Bangladeshi as an Indian, and so we can truly call him a global figure. Much before the age of globalization, became like a in thing.
Yes.
And it is reflected also in his writing. So that's a wonderful thing to see, that he even today he is as much looked up to in Bangladesh as he is in India. And as Amartya Sen said, he is even today he's looked up to in India. So thank you very much for all of this. I do not want to talk too much because we have many questions and we would like to hear your answers to them. So I'll start reading.
Well, there are so many scholars listening this, and and you can also take participation to answer the questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first question here, it is right and fitting to call Rabindranath Thakur the Vishwa Kavi. He's well known and accepted in India and beyond, especially in the West. Dear Bishop, do you think that there is any influence of Christian ideas in his writings and philosophy? And does it play any role in the universal acceptance of his literature? We can find a lot of spiritual insights in his writing that illuminate us as a kind of dialogue between religions. So that's the first question. A second, why Bengali people are more interested and famous for literature compared to other states in India? From where did they get inspiration? Maybe I hope for Dr. William Carey, if I am not wrong. And and third question is, Rabindranath and Gandhi had differences on the question of nationalism. Please give your opinion on this in the light of Rabindranath's life and philosophy. And another question, is there any similar personality in Bangladesh who has contributed immensely? Okay, so these are 4 questions. Could you answer these before I go ahead?
Before trying to answer this, let me show you the cottage, the Rabindranath's house.
Yes.
When he was looking after the states in East Bengal, close to the Padma River, this is the house, or they have a lot of property here, and he was, and his family were here for a few years, a good number of years. And he wrote a lot of poems and short stories and dramas during his time in this part. So I think the Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore differences that someone can answer from your part, no? Someone from India knows very well. The first question is right and fitting to call Rabindranath Thakur the Vishnu Kavi. He is well known and accepted in India and beyond, especially those.
Do you think there is an influence?
There is an influence of Christian ideas in his writings. Yes, as I think I mentioned it, that he loved very much Jesus Christ. No? And Charles Fier Andrews, a Christian padri, missionary, he was his very good friend. And we understand that Rabindranath was so open that he could not find any place for him in any particular church or particular denomination or particular Hindu sects or Islam, anywhere. But he observed, or he has taken some essence of all religion together. But I think overall, Jesus Christ influenced him, I think, when he called about that, the divine and humanity together in Jesus Christ. That is, I think, what we we express in our creed almost. Huh? Father Matthew, what do you say?
Absolutely true, Bishop Ji.
So I think Christ influenced very much Rabindranath Thakur, then Christian Church. And one reason people always tell that because of this British occupation of India, people had, and they saw the suffering under the British rule, how they, killed the people or tortured the people, and that is why Christianity, a lot of people say the Christianity did not spread.
Okay.
Gandhiji also wrote very nice book on Christ. I think you know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the problem with the Christian church or our actions. We are not always very, true Christians to show our behavior and actions.
Thank you, Bishop. I think our time is up. Before I hand over the mic to Father Matthew, I would like to thank Father Matthew and the ECC and the Focolare movement for giving me this opportunity to moderate the session. Thank you, Reverend Bishop Sarker, for your wonderful lecture. You can see your feedback, the feedback there. Thanking you for all of this. Father Matthew, please take over.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bishop Paul Shishir Sarkar, for this brilliant and splendid presentation of Rabindranath Thakur.
It is my pleasure and privilege to.
Yes, and yes, the way you have presented and also the paper you have written down, it is so much of depth of knowledge and many things we were unaware. And I must say that it was a very splendid and gave us so much of insightful thoughts. And we will be making it part of that our book. Definitely all these lectures will be collected together and given published as a book, Hindu Christian Dialogue, and this will be one of the very prominent notes and write-ups. So Bishop Ji, I know you were reluctant, but you have given us such a wonderful talk, so thank you so much. And also our moderator Edelweiss, and it is a precious stone. That is what I think in German that means. And she has moderated it very well. And also Caroline, she also introduced our speaker and the moderator, and all of you for listening to this wonderful lecture. I am grateful to all of you. And the question for the certificate course that around 50 of you are participating in it. The question is the religion, philosophy and spirituality of Rabindranath Thakur. Please explain. So I will write it on the WhatsApp groups as well as the email. And for next, that is on next Thursday, the talk will be on Chiara Lubick by Cheriline Meneses, the Focolare member. So she will be presenting on next Thursday, 6 p.m. So we are also part of the Focolare movement, that this Hindu Christian Dialogue Fellowship, and you have all wonderfully done the program. And next Thursday, we are looking forward on Chiara Lubick, who has made this interfaith dialogue ecumenical processes, and she had given, I think this is the 60th year of the foundation of Centro Uno. So we had the celebrations. So thank you so much once again, Bishop Ji, for this brilliant lecture.
Thank you, you too, and the chair, and the person who introduced, yes, and those who listen, yes.
Great.
I am sorry for it is so long that you could not discuss, you could not take time to discuss it more.
Thank you.
We have so much of thoughts you have given to us. So we are really lucky to have such a scholar who has gone deep into it, who has a very passion about Rabindranath Thakur. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you next Thursday.
Bye. God bless you all.
Thank
you.
you. Many great
Thank
We
you.
are,
Thank you
we
so
are
much.
praying for the India, especially for these
Praise the
days,
Lord.
as we are going through a very difficult time. I
Thank
sent
you.
a letter to most of the bishops I know, and
Thank you. Thank you.
especially the General Secretary of South India, Church of South India, and also
Yes, I received
Father
it. Thank
Matthew,
you so much.
please.
Yes, yes. I will share it with all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bishop.